a Fox News alert, the nation breathes a sigh of relief tonight as authorities say the suspected mail bomber has been caught. 56-year-old Cesar Sayoc of Aventura, Florida, has been arrested and charged with 5 federal crimes for sending mail bombs to prominent Democratic politicians and donors. He faces up to 58 years in prison. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Harris, she's standing by with the latest. Catherine.
Well, Dana, senior Justice Department officials held a news conference a short time ago here in Washington. The Attorney General said political violence of any form is in conflict with the democratic process.
This is utterly unacceptable. Political violence or the threat of violence is antithetical to our vigorous system of self-government. It is a threat to that respect for law and process that allows our people to accept legislation, elections, court rulings with which they do not agree. This is the central feature of our system of government. You advocate for your beliefs enthusiastically, but we peaceably and lawfully comply with the results.
Federal investigators seized the suspect's van, covering it with a blue tarp earlier today, concealing pro-Trump stickers. Sayoc's social media accounts also praising Republicans, slamming Democrats, and showcasing videos of himself appearing at Trump rallies. The Attorney General was pressed on why Sayoc singled out Democrats and at least one powerful party donor.
Why was he targeting Democrats?
I don't know, other than what you might normally expect. He may have been appears to be a partisan, but that would be determined by the facts as the case goes forward. I'm not able to comment on that.
The break in the case came when an FBI lab identified a latent fingerprint on one of the suspicious package envelopes addressed to Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters. 2 additional pieces of DNA evidence from other packages matched Sayoc, who was already in a law enforcement database because of his past criminal activity.
This is phenomenal work with the greatest pressure under an incredibly tight time frame. The work of the men and women of law enforcement here and the work that was done over the last week is something that should make every American proud and grateful. And it's too early at this stage for us to be discussing motivation in this particular case.
And the FBI Director Christopher Wray also asked the public to keep their eyes and ears open because he indicated they're trying to still determine whether they have all the packages or whether others may be in the system. Dana.
Catherine, I did have a question. Christopher Wray, the FBI Director, said like 3 times that these were not hoax devices, that they're doing more diagnostics and forensics. So does that mean if they find out more about these devices that they could increase the charges?
Right, that's a great question. They're trying to determine still whether he intended to construct viable devices that would explode at any path along the postal chain or at the delivery point. Remember, he said there was a cell phone on them and they can often be used as a timer, as a method of detonation. If they were to find that he had tried to do that but had failed because he lacked the expertise, this could then be an aggravating factor in any future prosecution.
We're going to take it around the table. Ed Henry, you have a question?
Yeah, Catherine, good to see you. I wonder we heard a lot about DNA evidence, and this seems like a pretty quick turnaround. Obviously, there appeared to be the forever stamps, which are self-adhesive, but there was talk in your reporting about maybe saliva. I don't know if that was from the back of the envelope. What do we know about the evidence?
What we know about the evidence, I think, is really twofold. One is that there was a tremendous wealth of evidence because the bombs did not explode. But secondly, and I think more importantly from the FBI director, that they did quickly recover a latent fingerprint on the envelope that carried the pipe bomb that was going to the Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters. And then they were able to extract DNA from other suspect devices. So they had 3 data points. They all aligned with Cesar Sayoc, and then they had his prints in the database because he has a pretty extensive criminal history and was known to law enforcement. So I don't know at this point whether the DNA was linked from saliva or it may have been a fiber such as, or a hair that was attached to that black electrician's tape. Remember, I was reporting about that yesterday. That's like a magnet for DNA evidence.
Juan?
Catherine, so I'm so curious about his criminal background and history. What I've read in the accounts today over the wire services is that he was arrested several times for things like allegedly stealing a suit from a store and the like. But we don't see any evidence of political violence previously, do we?
Well, what we were able to find in our research today, Juan, is that there was a bomb threat. I believe the date was 2002. I don't have a lot more sort of granularity and texture over whether that bomb threat related to a political idea or motivation. But Director Ray said that they hoped in the coming days to have more information about what the motivation was, whether it was political, and even more importantly, whether he was acting alone or he had help from others who were unaware of what he was planning with the packages.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and Catherine, that's what I was going to ask you, that these were so many bombs sent pretty much simultaneously. So they haven't told us anything yet about whether he was acting alone or whether he had an accomplice.
I was trying to ask at the news conference, but never got my question in for some reason, about the level of premeditation, right? Because when you're talking about over a dozen devices, that takes a significant period of time for an individual. Was he doing them just in his van, or was he doing them at his mother's home? We don't quite understand the relationship he has with his mother in South Florida, but we were given the impression that he was spending a lot of time in that van. Not quite homeless, but getting sort of close to the edge of that. From my experience, 12 devices takes a significant period of time because you got to cut all the pipes, assemble them with the explosive powder, and then he's got to go through the physical process of addressing all of them and then delivering them. So it would have been nice to have that question get in about premeditation, because that can tell you whether for months he'd been planning this, so maybe he was simply a lone actor, or whether it was in a very short time frame indicating that others may have helped support him.
All right, Catherine, thank you so much. We're going to leave it
Thanks
there
for
with
having
you.
me.
President Trump just spoke on the South Lawn. We have that tape for you. We can play it for you now.
I did not see my face on the van. I don't know. I heard he was a person that preferred me over others, but I did not see that. No, not at all. No, I mean, not at all. No, there's no blame. There's no anything. If you look at what happened to Steve Scalise, that was from a supporter of a different party. You look at what happened on numerous of these incidents, they were supporters of others. No, I'm just really proud of law enforcement. I think they did an incredible job. And I will see you in North Carolina. If they wanted me to, but I think we'll probably pass. Well, I think I've been toned down. You want to know the truth? I can really tone it up because, as you know, the media has been extremely unfair to me and to the Republican Party. I think the media has been very, very unfair in terms of the Republican Party and the way it's been covered. And they understand that. They write articles about that. Many of them admit that. But the media has been unbelievably unfair to Republicans, conservatives, and certainly to me. But with all of that being said, we're winning. So I like that. Thank you very much.
All right, we haven't had a chance to hear from Greg. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, I know we're going to be talking about the political ramifications of the B block, but it's hard when you play that clip not to just kind of like respond to what he is saying. Well, let's first talk about the bumper stickers for once. I have a rule. It's like cats. You know, if you have a few cats, that's okay. But if you have 60 cats, it's a problem. Anybody who's got that many bumper stickers, they're not hiding, right? They're not hiding. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you are. It's a good barometer, right? If you see somebody with a lot of crazy bumper stickers, they're probably crazy. And also, I mean, he was arrested for a bomb threat 14 years before Trump became president. So clearly, this guy had to screw loose before he ever discovered the red hat. So I think that there's a lot. He has a paper trail and a criminal trail that clearly shows this guy was just a bad egg or a hombre, as President Trump likes to say.
And given the scope of how many bombs in many states, the work, you can't stress enough what a great job the FBI did. And I mention that because there seemed like almost like a collective sigh of relief from the Attorney General and the FBI Director. When you think about the year both of them had.
Yeah, they needed a win.
Yeah, Christopher Wray, since day one, has been under fire from the president. He's been trying to clean up the mess from James Comey and Andrew McCabe. And as many at this network have said for a long time, we haven't been critical of the men and women who put their lives on the line every day at the FBI to protect us. It's been about the leadership that went partisan in some cases. And I think, let's not forget in your home state, Parkland, with the shooter, there were signs that the FBI missed as well. So they've had a brutal several months. And in this case, they came together and clearly busted their butts and got to the bottom of this very quickly.
They did, and Kirsten Nielsen and Homeland Security, the Postal, Secret Service, everybody just worked together, it appeared, in such a great way and moved so fast. And, you know, a point that you made, I've seen in my career, the people who make bombs usually have a history, an escalating pattern of violence. So it does not surprise me that he had this in his past.
Well, you know what's funny is that I keep going back to this. How easy it is to paralyze and create fear in a country. All you need is postage, all you need is pipe, and one person. There's 330 million people. I think you have to be really thankful that something like this is rare.
Right.
Because you know anybody can do this. And by the way, there, you know, we have to admit that there will be copycats because there always is.
You can't track every single person.
You know, when we were talking about law enforcement, what struck me was how appropriate Jeff Sessions was in his comments today, because I don't think he played any games. I don't know if he expects to be gone shortly after the midterms, but he said this is clearly a partisan act. And he said, you know, we have had to go after this, and it should not be, and this is not the way that we should conduct ourselves as Americans, given our
It
political
also is
differences.
impressive the new technologies that are available for them to be able to track this down so quickly.
But I don't think it's a surprise that Sessions would say that, because Republicans, they're about process, and process has no political influence. They don't care if the murderer is a Republican or a Democrat. It's a murderer. So when he's up there and they're asking about it, he goes, yeah, he's a partisan, but I don't care about that. The guy's a bomber. He should fry.
No, but you check out what they're saying about the caravan and other things. There's the president at the very top who's very political, and I think Sessions clearly separated himself.
Isn't the other thing, though, that how the country was not paralyzed?
Yeah,
I mean, there were multiple potential bombings, and people were not scared to come out.
We should say that, just to remind you, Secretary Nielsen of the Department of Homeland Security, the NYPD, FBI director all said there could be more out there. So if you see something, say something, be safe, call the authorities, and they'll take care of it. All right, more developments on the breaking news on the arrest of that mail bomb scare suspect up next.